Having the courage to just be yourself can seem insurmountable sometimes, but it is really worth it, whether you're a leader of one or a leader of many. Hi, and welcome back to our discussion on empathic leadership. Please remember to like and subscribe so I can keep delivering this content. And know that it isn't just for people in leadership positions, but for people who want to be leaders, people who are a leader for themselves, for their community, for their spouse, for their children. There's stuff in here for absolutely everyone. Let's break these two things down just a little bit more. So let's talk about the fear of the unknown. Everybody who has taken a business class of almost any kind and a lot of other classes understands that higher risk means the potential of higher reward, right? So as you're looking at this fear and you're understanding that there is a risk there, understand that the higher the risk, the higher the reward. You don't know how it's going to turn out, but you persevere and you do it anyway. Now, this still means you have to think for yourself, you have to do your homework, and that you have to be able to break down what that risk is. And that sometimes means not talking to other people about it too much, because their judgment of what this risk is might not be accurate, right? Like the person who goes, oh, you should absolutely not open your own dog grooming parlor because don't you know what kind of economy we're in? Everything's failing. Their perception of risk may or may not be accurate. So do your homework, understand your risk, and understand your comfort with the level of risk. But don't shy away from it just because there is some. Facing the unknown builds confidence, which in turn builds courage. Nobody is born with confidence. There's studies that show this. It is a skill that you work on every single day. And by overcoming small acts of courage, you build confidence. By building confidence, you build courage. Practice makes perfect, right? But you have to practice it. You can end up with this being in a loop and building your confidence slowly. But you have to do it every single day, even though it's uncomfortable, even though it's scary. And start with small acts. Start with little things and work your way up. The fear of judgment is a little bit harder. It kind of comes down to social anxiety. And that's a very real thing. I mean, back in the day, if we lived in the village and the village decided they didn't like us and threw us out, that meant we were out in the wilderness with the wolves. And that was scary. But in today's society, if you're living in a village with a tribe of people who maybe just don't appreciate who you are authentically, getting thrown out of that village may not be a bad thing because you can find your own tribe that espouses the same strengths that you have. We still have it in our system. There's still some biological base for it, but it's not something to be scared of like maybe it was 2,000, 3,000 years ago. One way to deal with social anxiety is to be very, very clear on who you are, right? One way to do this is to build a person vision. Now, people that are in business, they understand a personal vision, right? Where you're figuring out your 3-year, your 5-year, your 10-year plan. You see your vision and how this works out over time. I want you to build a person vision. And what this means is, who are you today? Who do you want to be? And how do you get there? Start by sitting down and writing down, who am I today? No judgment. All of it. The things you like, the things you don't like, not what someone else doesn't like, not what someone else is judging, what you think, what you believe. Write it down. Now write down your perfect version of that person. Who do you want to be? Who do you want to become? Who should this be in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years? If you don't have a target, you have no chance of hitting a target, or very little. So start by building yourself a target. Another thing that works for a lot of people is to have a reason to do it besides yourself. Now, that could be for your kids, that could be for a spouse, that could be for the people that you're leading, That could be just for a better world. Because understand, when you show up as your most authentic self and who you really are, you do make the world a bigger, better, brighter space. Have a reason to do it outside of yourself. Who are the people that you want to show up as your best self for? Who are you bringing your A game for? Once you figure this out, once you figure it out within your own space as your leader of one, right? Just like we talked about in video 2, you're a leader of one, who you are. Now you go out and you lead others. And you start this by being a role model. Don't say what you're going to do. Do it. Do it in small acts and in big acts every single day, right? Practice being brave. Practice makes perfect. Actually, practice makes permanent. So keep practicing being brave so that you can get to the big courageous outcome. Right? Think of it this way. If you don't role model what you believe and who you are, then how does anybody else have a chance of knowing it at all? And start small. If someone's talking to you, are you connecting with them, or are you making a grocery list in your head? Are you sitting at a table with 4 people and you're all on your phone, or are you actually talking and being vulnerable to each other? Do you veg out and disassociate in front of the TV every single night? Or do you make it a point of connecting with whoever's around you, even if what you're connecting with is your cat or your dog? Start with small steps. To be open and empathetic, there is going to be some struggle because there's some fear. But the struggle is where you really find the treasure. John Wooden, basketball great extraordinaire, said success is about giving 100% of your effort, body, mind, and soul to the struggle. Because the struggle is where the alchemy happens. The struggle is where you take people and they come out as gold. Don't be afraid of the struggle. Embrace it. You're taking the risk to take on that struggle because of what you stand to gain at the end of it. Only when you risk going too far will you find out just how far you can go. So how does this relate to being a leader of many? Once you've figured out how to be a leader of one, you have to own it to show the people that you are leading who you are, which then creates trust, and what you stand for, which gives them something to follow. Trust is paramount in all of this, which is why authenticity is so important, because it's real. It gives people something to trust. Walter Anderson said, "Our lives improve when we take chances, and the first and most difficult risk we can take is to be honest with ourselves." That's why I encouraged you to start with your person vision, without judgment, but with great honesty. And now that you can model this for others, you can show up unapologetically. You can show up authentically. And you can lead from a place of truth. Let's think of this in greater terms, in terms of business leadership. The great Peter Drucker said, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast every day." Most people here have probably at least heard the name Peter Drucker. If you have taken any business class ever, if you have done any business degree ever, even just like in passing, he is one of the business greats, one of the great thinkers. And his thing that he expanded on was the concept of management, including a focus on how businesses can operate morally and ethically. If he said it, it's worth listening to. So if you are in a leadership position and you are creating the kind of empathic culture that you wish to see, it all trickles down, because culture always comes from the top. As a leader, what kind of culture are you showing every single day? Because let's be real, there is always someone watching. You don't just have shareholders, you have stakeholders, and someone sees what you're doing. If, at the very least, you figure out who you are, and that causes you to leave a heartless, soulless job and find a place where your strengths are better appreciated, then that's a victory in itself. And let's be real. There is such a thing as a grassroots revolution. If the employee walks in and says, I'm going to be an empathic leader, I'm going to be that empathic leader of one, and the cohort sees that, and pretty soon they're doing that, that will rise up to the management, which will then rise up to the leadership. It's a lot harder. Culture comes down from the top in many ways, but there is such a thing as a grassroots revolution. And if there's one thing that the millennials and Gen Z have made really clear, it's that they're willing to push back on things that they feel are important, whether that's the Great Resignation, whether that's quiet quitting, whether that's minimal Mondays, whether that's coffee badging, whether that's just pushing for a better work-life balance. If you believe it, then live it. You can lead from the back. It is possible. And at the very least, it creates a much better place for you as a person physically. You have better mental and, through that, physical health because you are able to live authentically. Your brain wants congruence. And if you're pretending to be something you're not, you end up with incongruence. It creates a lot of friction, and time and energy is wasted. Be congruent with who you are. You have better connections with family, friends, and spouses. It gets rid of some of the stress and anxiety caused from living a lie, being incongruent, being unauthentic. And it allows people to be open and creative from a place of self-truth, of authenticity. Is it a challenge? Yes, it is. Will there always be people who want to judge or tell you why you're doing it wrong? Yes. I would like to tell you that they'll go away. They don't. But if you know who you are, it makes it a little easier to just kind of forget about it. Michelle Obama said, you should never view your challenges as a disadvantage. It's important to understand that your experience facing and overcoming adversity is actually one of your biggest advantages. Which is to say, empathic leader, that this is just one more way that empathy is an advantage to you and the sharpest weapon in your arsenal as a defender, whether that's a defender and a leader of one or of many. Don't hide your empathy. Remember, there's more of us than there are of them. Display it proudly, authentically, and unapologetically through how you live, how you show, and who you are every single day.